30 for outfielders, their peaks, but there are a lot of outliers. Some footballers are fully formed in their teenage years and then decline rapidly. Others are steady performers until they hit 30 and then explode into world-class players. So here is really an attempt to demonstrate that footballers can peak at any time. So I'm going to list 17 different footballers who peaked at 17 different ages, and by peak I'm just using the simple metric of goals, so how many goals they scored the most at each age. To keep things broadly comparable, all 17 players are strikers who reached their goal scoring peak in the last 30 years in the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A or the Bundesliga. So we could do this for other leagues, other positions. If you guys enjoy and that's something you want to see, then let me know in the comments below. But let's begin with age 19. Ronaldo, Barcelona, 1996 to 1997. Arguably, only Pele has been a more fully formed footballer at such a young age. At 17, Ronaldo won the World Cup with Brazil, albeit without getting on the pitch, and was 17 at the start of his 30-goal season for PSV. 2 years later came Ronaldo's most famous season, scoring 34 goals in 37 games in his only season at Barcelona. His time at Barca was more complex than is often portrayed. He was regularly laid back from international duty, didn't always attend events with the rest of the squad, complained about Bobby Robson's tactics, and was cheered by supporters toward the end of the season who felt he didn't care about the club. It wasn't an entirely happy campaign, but at this age Ronaldo was a pure individualist. His memorable goal against Compostela, when he ran almost past the entire defence, is the best example. His speed combined with his technical ability and his calm finishing often rounding the keeper made him almost unstoppable. The reason his peak came so early, of course, was largely due to injuries. Although spending a few seasons playing against better defenders in Serie A also limited his goal scoring return, he was still a ruthless penalty box striker at Madrid, but by then he'd lost the speed which made him the best in the world. Number 20, or age 20, Robbie Fowler, Liverpool 1995-1996. It's arguable that no other footballer of a modern age has played on for so many years after his peak. Fowler was still scoring goals in 2012 in Thailand, 15 years after his best goal-scoring campaign for Liverpool. When I look back, I can't quite believe what happened to me, he later remembered. It's frightening sometimes to think about what I achieved in those early years. I didn't realise I was that good. He was voted Young Player of the Year twice in a row and became the first player in English history to score 30 or more goals in all competitions in his first 3 full seasons. Fowler's decline was a little like Ronaldo's, largely about injuries. He fractured his ankle early in his career, which caused major problems later on. He also had issues with his Achilles, his knee ligaments, and later his hip. By his own admission, Fowler tended to take a while to get up to full speed upon his return, and while criticised for gaining weight later in his career, he says it was the opposite. He often returned from injuries underweight and was easily shoved off the ball. There were also tactical issues. Michael Owen emerged, and managers felt Owen needed to play as a target man rather than another finisher. Fowler's personal relationship with Julio was difficult, which led to his departure in 2001. He started well at Leeds, who eventually went through a financial crisis, and then Fowler returned to form at Man City after a poor start, before a surprise return to Liverpool. But by that point, Fowler's peak was over a decade beforehand. most impressive thing about Cole's 34-goal season in 93-94 is that it was his first top-flight campaign. He joined Newcastle 6 months beforehand, scoring 12 and 12 to help secure promotion, then carried that form into the Prem. He finished alone as the top scorer in the league and top assister, a feat that would not be repeated until Harry Kane did it in 2020-21. Cole was a true all-rounder, offering speed in behind, finishes with both feet and ability to make runs to score with his head too. But Cole was also a difficult character, something of an outcast who struggled to connect with his teammates and often infuriated his managers. After one particularly big argument, Newcastle boss Kevin Keegan decided to sell him to Man United. At Old Trafford, Cole was certainly a success in terms of honours, and 93 goals certainly isn't to be sniffed at, but unlike at Newcastle, he didn't quite have the side built around him, and Sir Alex later loaded up on strikers, which meant Cole and his best striker partner Dwight York were rotated a lot. A little surprisingly, he never scored 20 league goals in a season for United, and like the others on this list, injuries did eventually catch up to him. Age 22, Pippo Inzaghi, Atalanta, 1996 to 1997. You think of Inzaghi and you think of him as a veteran in a Milan shirt, or perhaps in his supposed peak in a Juve shirt. But Inzaghi's best goal-scoring campaign came in his sole season at Atalanta, all the way back in 1996-97, before he had made his international debut. That, a little surprisingly, was the only time he reached the 20-goal mark in a single campaign. At Juve he started well, but over the next 18 months suffered from Zinedine Zidane being woefully out of form and Alessandro Del Piero suffering badly from injuries. It didn't help too that Del Piero and Inzaghi also disliked each other. His move to Milan brought an improvement, although Inzaghi was rarely the main man, with the attack largely based around Andrei Shevchenko. Again, injuries caused problems, and later in his career Inzaghi retained his classic poaching instincts, but wasn't anywhere near as quick during his early years. In that sense, he was very similar to Cole. Age 23, Fernando Torres, Liverpool, 2007-8. By now the picture of strikers who peaked early is becoming clear. They're almost exclusively players who emerge from their teenage years, are based around speed, and then encounter physical problems that mean they struggle. Torres' drop-off was particularly staggering. At 17 he was playing for Atletico's first team, at 19 he was their captain, and at 23 he scored 24 goals in his debut campaign for Liverpool, followed by scoring the winner in the Euro 2008 final. Torres famously failed to replicate that form after moving to Chelsea for a then British record, but there were warning signs at Liverpool. He was constantly ruled out for lengthy periods with muscle problems. There's also an intriguing scene from a documentary about Spain's World Cup success, where Torres says he was warned that if he played at World Cup 2010, despite being in serious pain, it could compromise the rest of his career. That seemingly is what happened. Age 24, Diego Costa, Atletico Madrid, 2013-14. 6, 9, 10, and then suddenly 27 goals in a La Liga winning Atletico Madrid side. Where did that come from? The answer actually seems quite simple. Diego Costa only started playing organised football relatively late at 15. He always had the potential to become a great player, but he lacked the 300 games, said Atletico's former director of football, who bought Diego Costa. That's the number of games an 18-year-old would have played at youth level. Diego's problem was that he had never been in an organised team and no experience of the dressing room. If things had been different, there's no doubt he would have exploded onto the scene much earlier. And yet, in the context of other strikers, we're also talking about a player who peaked early. Brazil, he scored only 16 league goals since turning 30. For that, once again, injuries seemed to blame. Costa's formative years were troubled by knee injuries, and he certainly took risks with his bodies at certain points, most notably starting the 2014 Champions League final and lasting barely 5 minutes. That was a sad way for the campaign to end, particularly as it was to prove Costa's peak. Age 25, Hernan Crespo, Lazio 2000 to 2001. You think of Crespo as a bluntly prolific striker, but he actually only scored more than 16 goals in a season twice. In his final year with Parma and his first with Lazio when he finished top goalscorer in Serie A. Crespo's less impressive second season at Lazio was partly due to the loss of Barthold Nedved and Sebastian Veron, with their replacements proving hugely underwhelming. Crespo also suffered from injuries in that second season, which would have become a theme of his mid-20s. Crespo also started moving club almost every year. In 2003 he went to Chelsea, in 2004 he went on loan to Milan, 2005 he went back to Chelsea, in 2007 he moved to the city of Milan on loan again, but this time to Inter, before joining them permanently in 2008. Then there was a single year with Genoa and a swan song with Parma, but Crespo never truly felt settled for much of his career and peaked much earlier than we might have expected. Age 26, David Villa, Valencia 2008-9. A clinical finisher whose peak years coincided with Spain's dominance at international level. Villa peaked slightly earlier than most forwards, although at the same age, for example, Sergio Aguero. There's a similarity between the two players. Both were short, explosive players who were far more than pure speedsters, but who depended on acceleration in their best years. Both in a sense found their game slightly constrained when they were later coached by Pep Guardiola. Villa was fielded from wide at Barca and almost had to relearn attacking movements to benefit the team rather than himself, while Aguero initially found Guardiola wanted more all-round qualities rather than someone who exclusively ran in behind, which took a couple years for him to learn. Age 27, Gonzalo Higuain, Napoli 15-16. At Real Madrid, Higuain was considered something of a nearly man, which is somewhat harsh considering he scored 107 goals, most of which came when the side was dominated by Cristiano Ronaldo. At Napoli though, Higuain scored 17 in his first season, 18 in his second, then more than those two combined, 36 in his third and final season. One of the main factors in his improvement and subsequent decline was seemingly his diet. During his brilliant goal-scoring run, it was reported that Higuain has started using the services of dietitian Julian Boza, who had also worked with his Argentine teammates Messi and Aguero. He was supposedly eating more fish and meat and no sugar at all. When he arrived in Italy, he was 79 kilos and now he's 75, confirmed a club medic. Avoiding mayonnaise and tomatoes on the day of game has been key. But later in that campaign, Napoli president De Laurentiis suggested he hadn't been sticking to the diet. We cannot depend solely on one player and cannot demand more from Higuain, but it's true that when someone puts on 1.5 kilos too much, it's like running with a block of concrete. Nevertheless, Higuain still netted 36 goals, an all-time Serie A record. But upon his move to Juve, he was again criticised for being overweight by Max Allegri, who said he did not present himself in an ideal condition. But weight issues continued to dog him after making a loan switch to Chelsea. The first photos he posted in Chelsea training kit prompted former Milan teammate Suso to suggest he needed to ask for larger trousers. When he returned to Juve and played under former Napoli coach Sarri, he was supposedly put on his old diet and told to return to 75 kilos again, but Sarri never managed to rediscover Higuain's peak years. 28. Luis Suarez, Barcelona 15-16. Luis Suarez's career arguably goal season for Barcelona, and then finally a more modest but more crucial 21 goal season as Atletico Madrid won a surprise La Liga. But why did Suarez beat with Barca in 15-16? Well, there are a few factors. With Ajax, he was playing from the right flank and therefore arguably would have scored even more playing through the middle. With Liverpool, his two best campaigns were interrupted by bans, first for racially abusing Patrice Evra, then for biting Branislav Ivanovic. His debut campaign with Barca started late because of another ban for biting, this time on Giorgio Chiellini in the World Cup. But in 15-16 it all came together. Not only was Suarez playing with Neymar and Messi, but he'd established himself as the side's central striker. At this point, Suarez felt like a true all-rounder. His fighting spirit, combined with an athleticism and dribbling ability, made him so difficult to stop. In later years, he declined physically and became slightly clumsy, pure battler. Age 29, Dries Mertens, Napoli, 16-17. A classic late developer, Mertens peaked late for two reasons. First, he admits he was physically undeveloped in his early years. When I got to 18, I had a body like a guy who was 15. But the more important reason was that Mertens spent much of his career as a winger and then became a striker. After Napoli sold Higuain to Juve in 2018 and then Milik suffered a serious injury, Maurizio Sarri gambled on the intelligence of Mertens over the physicality of Gabbiadini, and he took to the role instantly. Before, I would have always said that an assist was as satisfying as a goal, he said, but now I see that as a striker, when you don't score, you played bad. When you score, even if you played bad, you're good. That's all people see when you play as a striker. So from now on, I'm scoring goals. Mertens had always been a popular player, but his goal-scoring form ensured he went up in the estimations of everyone, even the Belgian manager. Initially, Mertens was considered a false nine, but he ensured that was a short-lived phase thanks to his goals. With 28 goals, he was only one away from finishing as Serie A's top goalscorer in 16-17. Age 30, Edin Dzeko, Roma 16-17. So, who beat Mertens to that honour? Well, it was Edin Dzeko at Roma, 8 years after his previous best return of 26 for Wolfsburg. In between those peak years, Dzeko was a consistent performer for Man City, but one who was generally regarded as a plan B for Sergio Aguero. Dzeko's first campaign in Rome had been very difficult. He seemed an awkward fit for Rudy Garcia's approach, and he had a habit of missing very simple chances. But the appointment of Luciano Spalletti, perhaps surprisingly given Spalletti had arguably invented the false nine position at Roma, transformed Dzeko's game. If someone were to design a perfect striker, they'd come up with Edin, Spalletti said at the start of the season. Obviously, he needs to improve in some aspects, but he's physically strong, tall, quick, and has good technique. Sure enough, Dzeko started becoming more of a battler, but seemed more intelligent too. He carried forward that ability for many years, to the extent that he started last season's Champions League final for Inter at the age of 37. Age 31, Antonio Di Natale, Udinese, 2009-10. Another late bloomer in Serie A, Di Natale was more in the Mertens than the Dzeko mould. Early in his career, he was considered a lively wide attacker. Then he became regarded as something of a second striker before eventually becoming the main man. He won the top goal scorer in campaigns he'd started aged 31 and 32. It wasn't until 24 that he actually made his Serie A debut before a legendary 12-year spell with Udinese. He ended with 209 goals. Only 3 other players have scored more, including Francesco Totti. Whereas Di Natale's early days were marked by speed, he later became a goal poacher, an expert at timing his runs goal-scoring return accelerated. He never lost his knack of scoring beautiful goals, however, particularly delicate efforts from outside the box, including free kicks. He did acknowledge, though, that the standard of opposition had changed by his final days. I used to play against Paolo Maldini, Nesta, Cannavaro and Thuram. He said, I remember being unable to sleep the night before I came. Age 32, Robert Lewandowski, Bayern, 2020-21. Now, because of the COVID delay start to the campaign, this technically means he actually started 2 different campaigns at the age of 32. In 2020-21, he scored 41 goals in 29 games, and 21-22, he scored 35 in 34. They are the best 2 goal-scoring campaigns in an absolutely absurd career. Only once in his last 13 seasons has Lewandowski failed to reach the 20-goal mark, but it's that 2020-21 campaign that stands out, and primarily because he surpassed the famous 40-goal record set by Gerd Müller in 1971-92, a tally which for years seemed beyond the dreams of any player. He did it with a goal in the 89th minute of the last game of the season. Age 33, Karim Benzema, Real Madrid, 21-22. The alternative case study here would be Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but his late peak was, at least in part, because he was playing for an all-conquering PSG side in a weaker league. Benzema, in stark contrast, spent 14 years at Real Madrid, making a comparison between seasons somewhat simpler. Benzema was always a good goalscorer, scoring 37 league goals in his first 2 seasons at Lyon, and he also hit 20-plus goals on 2 occasions in his first 9 years with Real Madrid. But during that period, Benzema, while always playing as number 9, was a facilitator for Ronaldo rather than the main man. After Ronaldo's departure, Benzema's goal-scoring numbers exploded. From 5 in 32 league games in his last season alongside Ronaldo, Benzema subsequently hit 21, 21, 23, 27 and 19. His 21-22 beat doesn't even include the 15 goals in 12 Champions League matches, which included hat-tricks against both PSG and Chelsea in the knockouts, as well as winners in the second leg against Chelsea and in a remarkable comeback against Man City. He later won the Ballon d'Or to become the oldest winner since Stanley Matthews. Age 34, Aritz Adariz, Athletic Bilbao, 15-16. There was always something about Adariz that never quite made sense. He was arguably the finest header of a ball in La Liga, yet was only 5'11". And Adariz's limitations meant he became regarded as a plan B to Fernando Llorente at Atletico Bilbao. Somehow, by the time Adariz was a veteran, his limited game almost became easier for managers to accept. Returning to Bilbao prompted an improvement into a generally prolific striker for the first time. Having never previously scored more than 12 in a league campaign, he returned to Bilbao at the age of 31 and then scored 14, 16, 18 and then 20. That final campaign included another 10 in the Europa League. Amid jokes that he took some kind of magic potion, Adariz admitted that he was more of a late developer. And finally, age 35, Fabio Quagliarella, Sampdoria, 2018-19. For many years, Quagliarella was the ultimate scorer of great goals rather than a great goal scorer. However, he became a prolific striker suddenly in his mid-30s, winning top goal scorer in his 20th Serie A season. In one sense, Quagliarella's physical limitations at 35 helped him. Now he was less mobile, he focused on staying in the box and found that it actually suited him. It's also worth pointing out that some of his earlier seasons were compromised by an unsettling 5-year experience with a stalker. Yeah, we'll cover that in another video. But Quagliarella was also quite blunt about the level of competition he faced too, pointing out when he first played in Serie A, he was battling against the best defenders in the world. By the autumn of his career, the level of Serie A had dropped. striker peaks at each age. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you have enjoyed, please leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see